and the Vice President-elect joins us now. Should I call you Governor, Vice President-elect? I mean, you got a lot of titles still, right? How are you?
Just call me Mike. Good to see you, Sean.
Good to see you.
It's great to be in Cincinnati, and a lot of excitement here. And but the President-elect and I are really just here to say thanks. Thanks to the people of Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and really all across America for giving us the opportunity to serve.
And you know, you told me a big part of your speech is thank you for giving us the chance to.
That's right.
Explain that.
Well, I'm going to say to the people tonight, thanks to you, we're going to have a president who will unleash the boundless potential of the American economy by cutting taxes, rolling back regulations. Thanks to you. We actually have a president-elect who's already saving jobs in America. We just had a rally earlier today in Indianapolis where, because of President-elect Donald Trump, 1,100 Hoosiers are going to have jobs at a factory that was going to close and move all those jobs to Mexico. So my message tonight is just to make sure that people know that the President-elect and I are working every single day to build a team, to lay out an agenda, to make America great again, and to keep the promises that he made, and it'll all be thanks to them.
That's not insignificant, because otherwise it would have been 1,100 families going into Christmas.
That's right.
Not knowing their future, worried about their mortgages, their cars, their kids going to college. Yeah. That's a big deal. And on top of it, I was interested that the CEO actually said they're investing $16 million more in the plant there,
right,
and maybe $35 million more total in the state.
Yeah, I have to tell you, it really was remarkable to watch the President-elect's exercise leadership in this case. Indiana's a prosperous state. We have job announcements all the time. Really, in spite of what's been coming out of Washington, D.C., we've been holding our own. But this last February, we learned that here's a company that had been around in Indiana since the 1950s that was going to close its factories and move all those jobs to Mexico. When I knocked on their door and said, is there something we can do? They said it's a made decision. But just about a week after the election, President-elect Donald Trump picked up the phone, called the chairman of the parent company, United Technologies, and said, look, we're going to cut taxes, we're going to roll back regulation, we're going to have trade deals that put the American worker and American jobs first, and we'd like you to rethink this. And they said, we will. And we started those conversations. But I think what people see in that effort, in President-elect Donald Trump, is a man who keeps his word, a man of action, and a man who is not going to rest until we get this economy moving again for every American.
You know what President Obama said about this? And I was playing it on my radio show today. What's Donald Trump going to do? Wave his magic wand? And I thought about it, and I said, no, what he's going to do is what you didn't do. He's going to pick up the phone and call.
Right.
And were you there for that call? I'm interested. Did you?
I was there.
You were there when he did it.
Yeah, he picked up the phone and he spoke really one American to another. And he just said, I'm just calling to tell you that we're going to do exactly what we said we were going to do. We're going to cut taxes on job creators, businesses large and small. We're going to roll back the avalanche of regulation. Back in March, the leadership of Carrier told me what was driving them out of the country more than anything else was an avalanche of red tape coming out of Washington, D.C. And what the president-elect told the leader of that company was we're going to do exactly what the American people elected us to do. And he asked them very graciously in his own way to if they'd reconsider that, and I got to tell you how inspiring it was for me.
And your home state, yeah. Which, by the way, has been doing well, as you pointed out.
That's right, but
1950s is a long time.
It was inspiring for me to see the way that our president-elect just leaned into that effort, kept his word, has made a difference in the lives of 1,100 Hoosiers.
Son calls him a blue-collar billionaire. Probably a great example, right? You know, it's fun. I went out earlier before you guys got here in the crowd, and I talked to a lot of people, and this issue of Carrier came up, and what was the most important thing? What was the most important thing? And I kept asking, he's going to keep his promises, and they said this was one of them. And when you think about it, the agenda, if you break it down, and I talked a lot about it in my closing arguments, you said you saw the night before the election.
I did.
Supreme Court justices, originalists,
right,
vetting refugees, repatriation, 15% corporate tax, Obamacare replaced health care savings accounts. Then you got building the wall, education back to the states, energy independence. What am I missing?
Not a whole lot, although there is a little bit
the
more.
Military.
We're going to
rid of the
rebuild the military. We're going to support law enforcement at every level with the resources and the tools they need to restore law and order to our communities, and the list goes on. But you're absolutely right. I have to tell you, in addition to being Vice President-elect, I've been asked to chair the transition, and to see the caliber of men and women around this country who he is drawing to this effort, the cabinet appointments he's made so far. There'll be more appointments next week. Stay tuned.
But you're not going to give us a sneak preview. Okay.
But I just have to tell you, it's been exciting to see the energy, the vision, and the leadership that Donald Trump talked about on the campaign now being implemented by President-elect
I don't see him take a lot of days off, and I know you're in a lot of these meetings, and he's included you a lot. You told me the other night. This is what I think is that people want to know, that those promises that he made are going to be kept. And I think this is where Republicans, and I speak as a conservative, where they lost me a little bit. They promised to repeal and replace Obamacare. You know what a phony show vote is, but they never put the teeth into it. Or stop executive unconstitutional amnesty. Give us the Senate. You got the Senate. They didn't do it. They funded it. Things like that, I think, really annoyed a lot of people. It's important to keep your word. It is important to keep your word, and President-elect Donald Trump is a man of his word. I will tell you, he's dispatched me to Capitol Hill. We both went there together a couple of weeks back already, sitting down with the leadership of the House and Senate and laying out a plan, not just for the first 100 days, the first 200 days to implement that agenda. And, you know, you've known him a lot longer than I have. You know, this man is the very embodiment of optimism and energy and creativity. Oh, he controls the room. He's going to bring all of that to Capitol Hill, and we're going to drive that Trump agenda forward, and we're going to make America great again. How did it go when you were there yesterday? Because I know you were there yesterday speaking with a lot of these leaders. How were those meetings? Great discussions. We really brought our legislative teams together. Met with the Speaker, met with Leader McConnell in the Senate. And, you know, our effort is to be ready literally on day one, to be able to walk our new president into the Oval Office to take action on day one on a number of executive orders that the Obama administration has put into effect, but literally in that very moment to initiate efforts to repeal and replace Obamacare, to end illegal immigration once and for all, and to get this economy moving again with less taxes, less regulation. And it's exactly the agenda that he ran on. And I keep telling members of Congress, buckle up. It's going to be a busy year. Listen, that's a big agenda. If you got all those things done, I would say it's a prescription, the conservative solutions that I've wanted for a long time. How has your life changed? I understand you guys don't fly in the same plane anymore. True? For the most part? Well, that's right. That's part of the new changes. But how else has your life changed, to the extent you can share it? Well, in many ways, it really hasn't. You know, this was just about a 24/7 campaign for us before. My family and I poured our hearts and souls into this. The greatest privilege of my life. But as you said, there wasn't any vacation after Election Day. We were, first thing, the morning after the election, we were all rolling our sleeves up, standing by our president-elect and helping to build a government that can begin to implement that Trump agenda on day one. And frankly, the energy, the enthusiasm, the optimism that just emanates out of our president-elect is contagious, and it's going to carry us all the way to January 20th, and I think carry us to a great, great term in the I didn't have enough time to ask him a little bit about foreign policy. Is the Iranian deal done? Will that be eliminated? Do you think, as he does, that was a horrible deal? I think it was a horrible deal, but a lot of the money's already been transferred. Right. And I don't believe that any place, anytime inspections will ever take place. And I don't trust the Iranians. And while that deal was being negotiated, believe it or not, they were chanting death to America, burning the American flag and burning the Israeli flag. Well, the idea of transferring $150 billion back to the Iranians. Nearly $2 billion in what was unquestionably ransom payment is deeply offensive. It was a bad deal. And we've already begun internal discussions. I know the president-elect is going to give very careful consideration to the right way forward, but it all begins by recognizing how deeply flawed the Iran deal is and laying before him all the best options that'll put the interests of the United States and the interests of our most cherished ally first. Do you know if any countries like Iran, China, Russia, have they reached out? Or you can't say? It's fine if you can't. Well, I can tell you the leadership in China and Russia have reached out. For my part, I've spoken to foreign ministers and some heads of state around the country, but frankly, from the day after the election, leaders from around the world were reaching out to our president-elect. I mean, I really do believe that people across the globe, leaders across the globe,
recognize the kind of leadership that President-elect Donald Trump is going to bring to the White House. And they've been reaching out with graciousness, engaging directly with him, and he's been engaging with them with the kind of considerate, straight talk that I know will always characterize the way he deals with the world.
Will we repair our, what I would say is somewhat broken relationship with Israel? I've known Prime Minister Netanyahu for many years. He actually put a blurb on my first book. Will that relationship be repaired quickly?
I can assure you that if the world knows nothing else, it'll know this, that America, under a President Donald Trump, stands with Israel. He's had great discussions, as I've had the privilege of having with Prime Minister Netanyahu since the election, and we're going to continue to build that relationship.
Last question. Can we glean anything from all the time you spent both at Trump Tower, New Jersey, on Capitol Hill, that the role of the vice president in this administration is going to be a pretty active and busy one? It looks like it.
Well, I would, I'd leave that to the one person who will define it.
I mean, the guy who's been sending you around all the time.
My family and I are here to serve. I mean, you have to understand, I'm a small town guy from southern Indiana, not too far from where we're standing right now. The very idea of having a chance to stand next to our president-elect at such a momentous time in the life of our nation is very humbling for me.